Welcome to Train Signal. You are watching the lab setup video for Lab 16, Active Directory, Sites and Replication. In this video, I will go over the hardware requirements and show you how to set up the network together so that you can perform the activities in this labs. To begin with, let's go over the equipment that you need. Here's the table that I have set up. There are 3 columns. The first column describes the computer components, the second is the minimum requirements, and the third is what I recommend as the hardware requirements for this lab. Please remember, you can perform all the activities as long as you meet the minimum requirements. The recommended requirements is so that the activities go fast and that your network is a little bit better organized. So let's start with the equipment that you need. To begin with, you need 4 computers, at least Pentium 1 133 MHz. If you have 300 MHz or greater, so much the better. As far as RAM goes, at least 256 MB. If you have 512 MB or better, so much good. Simply because we'll be installing Server 2003 on each of these computers, and Server 2003 performs much better if the RAM goes up from 256 MB to 512 MB. As far as the hard drive goes, 4 GB should be plenty. If you have 10 GB, so much better. That way you can copy over the CDs for better network performance. Now, as far as the NIC card goes, there are 4 computers. On 3 of these computers, you need only 1 NIC card. So 1 NIC card on each of the first 3 computers. On the 4th computer that we will set up as a router, you need 2 NIC cards. One of them will go to the first network and the other one will be connected to the second network. The minimum and the recommended requirements for the NIC card remain the same. You need just one switch or hub to put together a network for all these 4 computers. However, if you have 2 switches, so much the better, simply because your network will be much better organized. Now, as far as the network cables, you need the Ethernet category 5 cables. You need 5 of those. Here's why you need 5. There are 4 computers. 3 of the computers will have 1 NIC card, so 1 cable to each. The 4th computer will actually have 2 NIC cards, so you need 2 cables over there. So 5 category 5 cables is fine. Now, if you have 2 switches, then what I would recommend is that you also have 1 crossover cable so that we can connect the 2 switches together. The reason I have 2 switches is so that you can set up all the equipment for the network 1 on the first switch, all the equipment for network 2 on the second switch, and then hook up the 2 switches together by means of a crossover cable. And I'm going to show you this by means of a diagram. Let's first go on and see how we're going to configure these computers. So here we are again, 4 computers, computer 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first computer, we will label it or name it as DC1, and this computer will have an IP address of 200.200.201.1, and the subnet mask will be /24, which is 255.255.255.0. On this computer, we will install Windows Server 2003 as the operating system. Service Pack 2 would be the additional configuration. You do not have to install Service Pack for the activities of this lab, but you should always protect yourself by putting the latest Service Pack and making sure that the security settings are set up correct on your network, especially if you are going to connect to the internet. So this is how we're going to set up the first computer, namely DC1. DC2, similar setup. The IP address will be 200.200.201.2 in this case. Remember, it was 201.1 over here. So these 2 computers will belong to the same subnet, and the subnet ID will be 200.200.201.0. Again, server 2003 on this with Service Pack 2. The third computer, which we will call DC3, will have an IP address of 200.200.202.1. So this will belong to the second subnet. Again, the subnet mask will be /24, and we'll install Server 2003 on this. So far, what do we know? Let me take you to a picture, to a network diagram over here. So this is assuming that you have just 1 switch. Connect all the 4 computers to the same switch. Let me just reposition this a little bit better. Here's our first computer, DC1, with the IP address of 201.1, DC2 with 201.2. These 2 will belong to the same network. Here's our third computer, DC3, which will have an IP address of 202.1, which will belong to the second network. And these 2 networks will communicate with each other by means of a router, which will have 2 NIC cards. Now the router will have the first NIC card as 200.200.201.254, and a second NIC card as 200.200.202.254. So going back to this one, here's a router. Here are the 2 NIC cards. One NIC card has a home in the first network, and a second NIC card has a home in the second network. Alright, so 4 computers. The first network will have 2 computers, the second network will have 1 computer, and the router will be the go-between between network 1 and network 2. Now, if you have 2 switches, and this is why I recommended 2 switches, simply so that all the activities that we perform are crystal clear, here are 2 switches. The first switch will have DC1 and DC2 connected because they belong to the same network. So 201.1, 201.2. So this is one subnet, namely network 1. Switch 2 will belong to the second subnet, namely 200.200.202.1. So DC3 is connected over here, and then the router is connected to both the switches. One cable from the router is going to first switch, which is 201.254 cable, and the second cable 202.254 is actually going to switch 2. So this is also known as a multi-home computer for that reason. One cable is going to switch 1, the other cable is going to switch 2. Now, how do we connect the 2 switches together? This we will do by means of a crossover cable. So use a crossover cable and connect to the uplink of switch 1 and then also to the uplink of switch 2. So in this manner you have set up your network. Also, when you use a crossover cable, make sure you take this precaution. A lot of times the network port that is adjacent to the uplink cable sometimes will not work because you have the uplink cable connected. So please check the documentation of your switch. Chances are that if you use the uplink cable, you may not be able to use a port that is immediately next to it. So this is just to give you a tip so that you don't spend time troubleshooting as to why the computers are not working properly, or you're not able to ping the computers from one to the other. Okay, so once again, if you have 2 switches, and this is how I have set up my network, there is one switch over here. DC1 and DC2 are connected to switch 1, DC3 is connected to switch 2, and then the router has one NIC card going to switch 1 and the other NIC card going to switch 2. Also make sure that you connect the right cable to the right switch. The 201.254 NIC card is connected to switch 1 and 202.254 NIC card is connected to switch 2. So going back to our diagram over here, 4 computers, and you know the network IDs for each of them, and then we will install server 2003 on each of these computers. This is all I expect at this point from you. Make sure that your network is set up in the way that I described and the operating system is installed with the default configuration. Do not install any additional services, just put the static IPs. And then in the second video, or the next video, I'm going to show you how to configure each of these computers as far as domain controllers and routers and so forth. In this particular video, I'm just asking you to make sure that you label the computers as such, make sure you put in the right IP address, and then you connect all the NIC cards and the cables to the appropriate switches, and make sure you ping so that there is connectivity between all these 4 computers. So let's check that also in my network. I'm going to minimize this diagram and minimize this as well. Now I'm going to introduce to you the network that I have set up. Whenever you see this logo of Train Signal, you are looking at my recording workstation. From here, I'll be accessing our 4 computers. And what I've done is, I've set up a remote desktop connection to each of the 4 computers. I'm doing this simply so that I can capture the activities on all the 4 computers on one screen, and then perform the activities and show you the activities live while I'm performing this. You do not need to do this, but if you have just one computer screen and 4 or 5 computers, you can also use a remote desktop to set up all the equipment together in this manner. So what I've done is the following. I've created a remote desktop connection for DC1, DC2, router, and DC3. And every time I go to each of these computers, I'll tell you that I'm going to DC1 and we are performing the following activities on the computer named DC1. In networking, it is absolutely essential that you perform the activity in the right sequence and on the right computers. So I will take my time to make sure that you understand that you have to perform the following on DC1 or perform the following on DC2. First do it on DC1 and then perhaps do it on DC3 and so forth. Okay, so I've set up my connection over here. This is my recording station, and from here I will access each of these computers. So let's do that. The first computer I'm going to access is DC1. So let's do that. It's making a connection to the remote desktop, and we know that we are connected to the remote desktop. What I'll also do is I'll double click on this so that you can see right here on the screen in the title bar that we are on DC1, and then the IP address that we're using is 200.200.201.1. Now on this computer, let me just give you a little tour of this. I'm going to go to the properties and then go to the computer name. Here's a computer DC1. At this point, because I've just performed a default configuration, it is simply a work group. we're going to set up a domain controller on this later on. So just to show you that, and let's check the IP address over here. So I'm going to right click on network places, properties, and then go to the local area connection properties. And here is the TCP IP properties, and here's what I've set up. The IP address is 200.200.201.1. Remember, this is DC1. Subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, and the DNS, eventually this computer will also be the DNS server. So I've gone ahead and set up 200.200.201.1 as the IP address of our future DNS server. By the way, we'll only have one DNS server in this lab, so all the DNS settings will be 200.200.201.1. So I'm going to click on the OK button and then get out of this. Also, over here you're seeing a cross simply because I have 2 network cards on each of my servers. I'm not using the second NIC card because I don't need to. Remember, on DC1, all we need is just one NIC card. So here is my connection to domain controller 1, and it is all set up. Also, what I've done is, or I've tried to do my best at, is color code each of the screens so that you can easily recognize by color also which screen is which. So DC1 usually will be blue. I'm going to minimize this connection and then go back to my recording station. Now, here is DC2. So let's connect to DC2. And here we go. It's setting up the connection now. As you can see, it's trying to reach a computer that is 201.2, and that's the IP address for DC2. And here the color is a little bit different, teal. And once again, if you were to navigate this, you will see that I have named this computer DC2. It is still a work group, and eventually we'll set this up as the additional domain controller in a first network. So here's my connection to DC2. Now let's verify the following. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Start, go to the command prompt, and then just clear the screen a little bit. I cleared it too much. Here we go. All right. Now, after you set up the after you install all the operating systems and then set up the lab equipment, make sure you can ping all these computers. It is essential, otherwise the labs will not go smoothly. So let's make sure we can ping DC2. I'm sorry, I am on DC2 now. So let's make sure we can ping DC1, which is 200.200.201.1 from here. And here we go, we are successful. Okay, so keep checking that as you go along. I'm going to go get out of this and then minimize this as well. And now this time I'm going to go to our third computer, which is DC3. Now this is set up on our second network because the network ID over here is 202.1, and you can see from the color that it's going to, the screen's going to look different, and that was the whole idea. Okay, so that it looks a little bit different so that you can recognize that you're on a different computer. So that's my third computer, and the fourth computer, which is connecting these two and this one together, is the router. I'm going to double click on the router now. And here's our remote desktop connection to the router. Again, the color is slightly different, light blue this time. And now this router, let's go through the configuration of this one, which is important. This router has 2 NIC cards, and I've set up both of them. Actually, I forgot to label this one. So let's do that now. What I did was I labeled this one as network 2. Right click on this one, rename. You can do the same thing in your computer setup, network 1. Okay, what I'm leaving a note for myself is that this particular NIC card is connected to network 1, so the IP address on this one should be 201.254, and again the same DNS server. Whereas this one is connected to network 2, and the IP address on this particular one should be 202.254, and again the DNS server is 201.1. So I have this server set up as a router, and it connects both networks together. Now, sitting on this computer, this is a critical test. Now, sitting on this computer, I should be able to ping all the other computers in my network simply because this computer has physical connectivity to each one of them. It's, after all, a router. So let's do that. Let's ping the first computer, which is 200.200.201.1, and I have connectivity, so that is good. Okay, what happened was, so that you understand this clearly, DC1 over here, and this is the router. It used the 201.1, and over here on this computer, and 201.254 on this computer, to send the packet through the same switch, and it worked. Okay, and this manner, let's also ping DC2, which is 201.2. So I have connectivity right there also. So we were successfully able to ping both our servers on the first network. Now let's ping our server on the second network, which is DC3, also numbered as 202.1. So if I'm able to ping this, I'm able to access all the computers on my network. This is a critical step. If you have to spend a lot of time doing this, please invest that time because this is going to be absolutely critical. We do not want network activities to slow down simply because the physical equipment was not networked properly. So once again, to summarize this video, let's go back to our this should be a good basic diagram at this point. 4 computers, DC1, DC2, DC3 and and the fourth one will be the router. The router will hook up both subnets. DC1 and DC2 belong to the first subnet, and that subnet ID is 200.200.201.0. The second subnet is 200.200.202.0. DC3 belongs over there. Router has 2 NIC cards, each NIC card connected to each of the switches, and the NIC card has a home in 201 network as well as in a 202 network. On each of these computers, you will install Server 2003 and put Service Pack 2 if needed. You don't have to do that, but if you have it, might as well just do it. Okay, and then set up the network together by means of, let me just take you back to the network diagram. If you have 2 switches, use this configuration. Make sure that DC1 and DC2 go to switch 1, DC3 go to switch 2, and one NIC card is connected from the router is connected to switch 1, the other NIC card from the router is connected to switch 2. Alrighty, and then last but not the least, here is how I'm going to communicate with you. I'll start with this recording screen, and then every time I go to DC1, I will take you to DC1, and all my connections will be minimized over here. So if I click on DC1 over here, you know that you can tell from the screen that I'm on computer DC1, and the activities that I'm performing currently are on the computer named DC1. By the way, if you would like to set up remote desktop connection, all you have to do is right click on the computer name, properties, go to the remote tab, and over here click on this checkbox that says allow users to connect remotely to this computer. As long as you're the local administrator of this computer, you do not need any special permissions. However, if you have other users that you would like to give them access, make sure that you click on this button over here, select remote users, and then add those users to the screen that follows. Okay, so I have also showed you how to set up remote desktop connection, which again is optional. This should conclude our video for lab setup. I thank you very much for watching this video and hope to see you very soon in the next video on Active Directory.